Good morning, everyone. This is Brandon Krieger from KNSS Consulting Group. Today is Cyber Chat episode number 8. I'm excited about keeping these episodes going because I know the more I talk about cybersecurity, people protecting themselves and protecting their business, the more they're going to be aware of the vulnerabilities and risks that are out there. And let's talk a little bit about that as we wait for some people to jump in. Risks and how it really works when it comes to the cybersecurity and any type of risk analysis is you look at what vulnerabilities that you potentially might have. Is it a weakness in your business? Is it communication? Are you relaying too much information out there that could be compromised? So what's that vulnerability? And the risk is the potential to take advantage of that vulnerability. So if someone's eavesdropping and hearing your company's secrets or what you guys are doing, say at Starbucks, well, that's a risk, right? That's going to take advantage of a vulnerability. Say you're talking to someone in a public venue, one of your Starbucks, and you're sitting there going, yeah, and we're going to make an extra $10,000 this month by doing these strategies, but keep it secret. Don't tell anyone because it's only proprietary to our company. Well, if you're in a public forum and people can overhear that, the risk is that someone can overhear it. And the vulnerability is that you're talking in an open area. And that becomes the challenge when you're looking at like a risk assessment, you're looking at risks and vulnerabilities. You look at, and that's the potential for any type of system that you might be using, be it social media marketing. And I know I was talking to someone yesterday about social media marketing. And when it came to posting pictures of kids online, one of the concerns they had was, should they be doing it? Should they be posting pictures? And I said, well, you got to look at what's the risks that are out there. What's the potential because you're posting? How does that make you or your family or your kids vulnerable? And then, what's the loss? What's the loss potential from that? As a sense of, people share out your kids that they're at a park and that's okay. Or does someone compromise the picture and Photoshop it and then share it on, I'm going to say unauthorized sites. I'm not going to go into like pedophiles and all that, but just unauthorized sites or without your permission. And you really look at that and you have to think about, okay, how far do you want to go down that rabbit hole? And I know the conversation I was having with this amazing parent was that, what's the age that kids should be on Facebook? Is there, an age limit? And I said, you gotta look at the terms of service. The terms of service for Facebook is, as far as I'm aware, is 13. And if the child is under 13 and something happens, right, even if they're 13 and above, I mean, they're held liable for their actions, right, as well as the potential for the parents to be held liable because if they're underage and they get caught doing something that's gets them in trouble legally or potentially, affects the reputation of themselves or their family, the parents can be held liable for this. So you really have to think about having your kids out in social media marketing, especially when they don't understand the repercussions, right? In the sense of they post something online that might be, profanities or something that they're doing that is illegal or making comments on posts that maybe they shouldn't. That can affect them and they can affect the family. And it can affect their future careers later when HR people are looking at that and seeing, the comments they're making. So you really have to look at, the vulnerability that could cause and the risks that are out there. Like, again, we're looking at just simple things of, it could affect their reputation. It could affect their career. But there's things that could affect their personal safety as well. So you have to look at the depth of it and really do your research. And it's not to scare anyone that's watching this, but it's for you to be knowledgeable about what is really out there and kind of the risk and rewards, right? Yeah, social media sites can be fun. They can share information with their friends, but also there's cyberbullying and they can get, threatened. They can lose their self-esteem, self-worth, all because kids are threatening them and saying, they're ugly, they're fat, whatever that may be. And now the child, your child, might not be able to handle that pressure because now, when I look at bullying, and I'll use this as an example, bullying, in the 80s and 70s and before that, you used to have to deal with a bully maybe at school or on the way home, but when you got home, it was your safe haven, right? And you were able to, be kind of sheltered and your family would be able to look at you. But now, because of mobile devices, internet, social media, being on your computers and all that, they can't get away from it because it's always around them. So if they log into their computer, it's there. So it's a little scary to think about, the vulnerabilities for kids, right, and teenagers and your kids, and the risks that are out there. So, you really have to think about that. Just give me a second here. I'm just looking at something. So I said that wrong. So it's a threat taking advantage of a vulnerability that equals a risk. And so the threat, and let's kind of clarify, the threat is someone like a cyber bully, someone taking advantage of your child, someone taking your picture. That's the threat. The full situation is the risk. Still learning here, still kind of getting everything down because I've been downloading information, like just learning. So it's pretty crazy. But yeah, it's a threat taking advantage of a vulnerability, and the vulnerability, like I said before, is, kids being out online, they're not understanding what they're doing, they're not understanding their posing. That makes them vulnerable to a threat. And the threat, and this makes sense now since I'm saying it, is, someone taking advantage of that vulnerability. So someone modifying their picture, someone posting and saying, like a troll saying, "Oh my God, you're this, you're that, you're terrible," or someone sharing it out and saying, comments like, "How can you believe this person saying this?" And that's the threat. And then the whole entire thing is a risk assessment. So kind of interesting. As I'm learning this, as I'm developing, I'm only like 6 months in. It's I won't say overwhelming, but it's very enlightening to kind of see what is out there. And you're kind of looking at going, how many people don't know what the potential threats are out there and are just, posting around, putting things out there and potentially making themselves even more vulnerable. Even an example, I was talking about vishing the other day with a client, VISHING. And vishing is when someone calls you over the phone trying to collect or get information from you. And there's people doing this form of, I'll call it hacking or trying to manipulation. And what they're trying to do is trying to get personal information, trying to get your identity, trying to get, username, password, secure information. And then what they're doing is they're calling and saying, "Hi, I'm from XY company. We just want to confirm before we go into our call. We just want to confirm your account." And some of them are calling from your phone company, the government, saying there's a tax problem or there's an issue. And what happens is people are like unaware to do the research. And what they're seeing is they're going in and saying, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, you're from XY company. Yeah, for sure. I'll validate that information." And what they're doing is they're saying, "Yeah, here's my address. Here's my information. Oh yeah, here's my postal code. Here's all that, personal information." And then they go, "Oh yeah, what's your social security number or social insurance number if you're in the States?" And then people go like, "Oh, it's this. That I guess I have it on file. But what's the last 4 digits of your credit card?" And then they start to give that information. So now they have a profile on you, and they're starting to collect that information. Now through social engineering, they might be able to find a lot of that information online now. Your address, your information, your postal code, your date of birth, all that information. But sometimes it's easier. They just call you and say they're from this company, and they collect this all the information. And now it makes you vulnerable. So that threat makes you vulnerable now to a risk of being compromised on any of your online sites, your bank account, any of your information, because now they can go back and call some of your companies and say, "Hey, I am, John Doe. Yeah, I just need to change my password. I need to, get some information. Oh, we need to validate your account. Okay, what information do you need? Oh, we need your birth date, this, and they can rhyme it off now because they have your profile. They have all your information. So something that people have to think about, right, as they're going from their day-to-day is how to be aware of these threats that are out there, right? And not be scared of them, but just be mindful. Like one example for that phishing attack is I tell people to no, not like to answer the phone. "Hi, you're from XY company. Oh, thank you. You want to ask me some information? Okay, let me give you a call back." Hang up and call the company back directly. Have the direct number that is their correct number, and call them back and say, "Hi, I've got a call from your company. I just wanted to confirm, that you were calling me," and then go through that process, because then you're in control of knowing who you're talking to, right? And then that, at least at that point. But don't take, and this is something I'm just trying to do my due diligence. When you're on the phone, if that phishing attack calls you, don't take their phone number and call them back. Say, thank you so much. I'll give you guys a call back, and hang up. Find the number directly. If it's on your statements, if you have to look through the yellow pages or maybe look online, find the number directly and then call them back and say, hey, company X, just wanted to say, I just wanted to follow up and say someone's been calling me. They're asking these questions. Was that you? And they'll say they'll verify, yes, it was, no, it wasn't. And if they verify, then at least it's a valid call, and you don't have to worry that you're under a phishing attack. Because, like I said, I've had people that have had their identity stolen that I've talked to. And the scary part of it is that when they have their identity stolen, they don't realize the repercussions later, because all of a sudden they have their identity stolen, right, through a call, unawares to them. And then what happens is maybe a week, 2 weeks later, all of a sudden they're losing money in their account. And they're like, what's going on? And so they call their bank and say, that wasn't me. And they go, well, your account must have been compromised. Now you have to change your password. You have to get a new bank card. You have to go all through that process. Maybe if you have automated transfers or something set up. So we might have to stop all those until they do the investigation. So it's a lot of work and a lot of hassle for something that, if you keep on top of your security and your safety, that you might not have to deal with. Like even today, I'm going to a seminar this afternoon that a charter of accountants is hosting about identity theft, just to see what they're saying, what information. I mean, it's always good to learn. But when you look at identity theft, the personal identifiable information, a lot of time is stolen online or through these methods. So something, again, to educate you is to be aware of. I'm drinking tea here just to keep my throat going. But yeah, it's interesting when you look at, cybersecurity and all the information out there that, we have to look at on all aspects of personal and professional, how it affects our personal life, our family, our friends, our colleagues, people that we might have business friendships with, but not might personally work with. And then when you look at your business, how does it affect your business brand, your reputation, your clients and your clients' reputation. I mean, you don't want to sit there, and I'll give an example. Say you have a bad experience with a client, you're a business, you don't want to go slam them on the internet and say, oh my God, this is one of the worst clients ever. And then what happens is you look bad because you did that. Now, potentially the client, if it's a scenario where people, come together and say, oh my God, I can't believe that client did it. They're such a jerk and all that. And now there's a little bit of a viral presence around that post. Now they can get a bad reputation. They could be affected. So, I mean, you really have to think about your actions of what you're doing online. So it's interesting when you look at cybersecurity. Hey, Slugworth, if you want to jump into the seat, come on in. I'm just chatting away here. But yeah, one of the things that you have to be mindful of is, just the things that are out there, the threats. Because I don't think a lot of people think about the vulnerabilities. They think about the vulnerabilities or the threats. What they think about is the accessibility. Oh my God, this application's great. My kids are all on, these devices and social media and all that. They think it's all great and just kind of get out there, but don't realize the compromises that it could affect the child, your kids, your clients, your business, all across the board. And I mean, it's scary at this point when you look at how fast technology is growing, what we need to be aware of. And I mean, with parents, like I said, having that discussion with that parent the other day, you kind of hear it. And the parents that are for the technology and maybe very adamant about it are not aware of the situations. And they're defending it. Well, my 7-year-old child is on Facebook. And you're like, why? Why are they on Facebook? Well, because their friends are on Facebook. Okay, but what's the purpose? What's going on? What are they posting? Are you monitoring the site? Are you watching what they're posting? Are you watching who they're connecting with? Are you watching who they become friends with? Are you doing a little bit of investigation? And a lot of times it's no, they're just letting them go. And that causes that risk of that child being out online, and who they're connected to. They might not know. And a lot of times when there's scammers or pedophiles or anything along that line, they're disguising their identity. They're acting as, and this is what I'm trying to think of, catfishing. they're doing like a catfishing approaches. They're stealing someone's image, identity, and all that, and they're using it and saying, "Oh, maybe I'm another 8-year-old, teen boy or girl, and I want to connect with you because you're so cool." But it might be like a pedophile behind that. So it's really important to do your due diligence and your research again when it comes to all these technologies, and that's why having these cyber chats and having people come in, it's really important to me to look at all aspects. I mean, people talk about IT security when it talks about corporations. They talk about how to secure your router, your switches, your firewall, make sure the authentication. But vulnerabilities now are coming from all different areas. They're coming from individuals, right, being compromised in some way. And then we talked about, I just talked about social engineering, right? Them being compromised that way, them relaying too much information or privacy, over a conversation in a public forum or over social sites, whatever that may be. Them relaying just too much of their own personal information that can make them vulnerable. That say they don't have a strong password policy, and their password is their dog's name and their dog's date of birth. Well, through social engineering, a good hacker will find that out very quickly. Well, if they're a high-level position in a company and they get compromised, well, now that company can be affected. So there's all these things you have to think of. It's like a spider web of how everything is connected now, and we have to really think about everything that's going on. So I wonder if you wanted to jump in, Slug, or did you have any comments, questions? What do you think about the cybersecurity world and what's going on with it right now? It's interesting because I find right now there's two sides of the coin, and I mentioned this before, is that there's people who know, right, and just kind of like, you know what, it's not going to affect me. And the other side of the coin is people who don't know, and when you tell them, they're like, well, what am I supposed to do? Right? So this is why I'm having these cyber chats, is to really get people involved, to engage, to really take care of themselves, because what happens is all this new technology is great when you look at all the great things that are happening. You'll be able to check your email, you're able to check your calendar, notes, weight loss, you name it, all from this mobile device. But you have to look on the other side of the coin as well. What are you giving away? What potential threats are there because of maybe giving your personal information away? Maybe you're giving your contact list. There's all these different things that applications do ask for as they're installing. I'm more concerned about predators' behavior and bullying now that my daughter is almost a teenager. Perfect topic. So one thing you got to be aware of, and I'm going to ask you this. Do you mind if you share your first name? Randall. Nice to meet you, Randall. Brandon. So one thing you have to do is, and I don't know if you do this yet, is do you, first and foremost, have good conversations with your daughter about, what's out there, social media, how to use it, the threats that are out there? Do you have like some good conversations asking them, what do they know about? What are they concerned about? Just kind of getting them a baseline of what they're thinking about. Okay, perfect. So that's always the first conversation, because I find what happens is, as I've talked to teenagers and parents, there's this disconnect. And we all know, I've been there. When you're a teenager, you get to that point where you know it all. Parents are dumb. They don't know what they're talking about. The kids know everything, right? And I've been there, and I understand the mindset behind that. And it's up to us as parents, as one, to have the open conversation, which great, you're doing. Second is to have checks and balances and monitoring tools in place that you can make sure they're safe. So for example, you have access to their social accounts. So you can monitor who's, what their comments, what they're saying on it. You can monitor who they're liking and following and who's connecting with them. So you can do a little bit of research. What they're posting, so you can have conversations maybe later if they post something that's maybe on the fence. You kind of go, okay, and I'm going to use, say your daughter is named Jane. I'm just going to use that as an example. So, hey, Jane, I saw that you posted that. That was pretty interesting. Just tell me a little bit about why'd you post that, and see kind of where it's coming from. Well, a friend posted that, and she posted a picture of this and that. So at least you can kind of have an understanding. And we have an agreement that I can check all all social media accounts. Perfect. And this is the thing, like I said, you have to be open to be able to monitor them and have weekly discussions, because things can get away from a teenager very quickly. I know the other day there was a teenager that myself and Ryan Miller, who specializes in this, was talking to, and one of the kids looked like they compromised the teenager's phone, got some pictures of her in the shower, and then they shared those pictures out, and it started to go viral. So, things that you look at: securing her phone, making sure there's a password set that no one can have access to, no one can see it. Just make sure she has best practice of that. Second of all, make sure geo tracking is turned off on her image, any of her image software. So what happens is it's not tracking her location, because, again, if she's posting at school, she's posting at coffee shops, and someone's watching her, they can start to see her habits and where she's going. Right? So it's good to turn off geo tracking. Now, if she goes on vacation, remind her to post her pictures after her vacation, not while she's on vacation. Something just, again, personal awareness. And I even recommend that for parents and adults that are traveling, is to post your pictures when you get back on your social sites if you want to share them, is so that people don't know when you're away. They don't know kind of your habits, and they're not, kind of tracking you. Again, you can be compromised very quickly if people know your schedule. So one of the things to protect yourself is to post your images when you get back, and make sure, again, with your cameras, there's not geo-tracking. Now, if you want to let people know where you are when you're on vacation, just make sure your vacations are a little bit sporadic. And what I mean by that is that you're not going for vacation every February, right? Because, I can look at your history, say on social sites, and if I know you go on vacation every February, you did it since 2010, 2011, 2012, well, guess what? If I'm someone that wants to take advantage of you some way, I know maybe your house or your place is now available at that time, so I can go and potentially, break into your place. I can compromise your identity here, right? Say if you're in the United States or Canada, I can compromise your identity here because you're away, so it's harder for you to fix that, right? Especially to be aware. I've heard of people who've gone away on vacation, all of a sudden their credit cards have been canceled and everything's gone because someone's compromised it somewhere else, and the credit card company has stopped the credit card, stopped everything, and now they're like, okay, well, what do we do? Like, we're stuck here, in another country with no money. So things to really think about and help to protect yourself. Did you have any specific questions, Randall? I find it's one of those great things in this day and age is that parents have to really be more educated on technology. And it's almost like they have to go to school. And here's something that maybe, Randall, you can think about too, is networking with other parents in the area to find out what's going on. Having little, coffee meetups, you guys maybe over dinner, just a social event, say, hey, what are you guys, dealing with, the teenagers this week? You guys have any challenges? Anything wrong with the technology? Something that you guys may be having a discussion about? Because what happens is what one parent might be discussing might be something that another parent has already dealt with or hasn't dealt with yet, right? So if you guys are all on the same page, then at least you guys can educate yourselves as a team and be able to know what's going on, what's happening. Because even, for example, there's tools out there that teenagers can use that can create two different profiles on their phone. So what happens is their profile that they log in, here you go, Dad, take a look at this, check this out. And they look at it and goes, okay, everything's fine. And then there's another app that's hidden. They click on it, they put in a password, and then it opens up the other applications that the parents might not know about. So there's tools like that they're pretty smart, right? They're pretty smart to protect, things that might be hidden. Also, when you look at when they're texting people, right? They might text and just delete, right? They delete and they hide their history, they clear their history, everything like that. So parents might not know what they're texting out unless they, have monitoring tools that they're using. And that's why it's kind of hard. You look at what's the line, where do you say, okay, you can have a phone, you can have the technology, you can be on social sites. What's that line? And I think, for me, it's the maturity level and the understanding at whatever age your teenager is, and I mean, I'll say teenager because they have to be at least that maturity to understand cause and effect. So if they're 15, 16, 17, at least they have a good understanding of, if I do this action, this could come back in this way. So I have to be very mindful that I'm protecting my identity, myself, my brand. Because even something I mentioned earlier was something that a teenager posts now can affect their career later. So what happens when someone does, like a company does an HR company, or a company with an HR person does a search for that applicant's information online to see what they're posting, if they're a good fit for their company. And if this person's hanging around with kids that are smoking weed or breaking into cars or doing something bad, that applicant might not even get a call back to be educated. Okay, yeah, we're not hiring you because your identity online is showing us that you're not the right fit. And this teenager might have done that when they were younger, and they might have been in a little bit of trouble, but that's not who they are now. They might have went to high school, they graduated, and they may have went to college, university, and been really a great candidate. But because now people are doing research online, they're finding that, yeah, but you have this tendency to do this. How do we know? So that's the mindful part right now, is parents really have to understand, as well as kids have to understand, is the cause and effect. Hey, loud. So it's kind of the cause and effect they really have to be mindful of, is that what you post now can be online for forever. And what happens is it looks in the sense of this, is you post it on your social site. It doesn't mean it doesn't get cached or picked up by Google. It doesn't mean that your friends don't grab it and share it on their social sites. Now it gets that little viral movement, and you try to delete it from your profile, but it's still out there. So if I did a search, or a company did a search and looked on Jane Doe's information, it might come up on Google Images, it might come up on the search results. And if I dig deeper, and find it, well, guess what? It also now puts a bad taste in my mouth and says, you know what, that's maybe not the right person. So it's very mindful of you have to be mindful of what you're using the technologies for and what you're posting online. So, Loud, if you wanted to jump in, come on in. Just right now, Randall and myself are just talking about like pedophiles and things that teenagers have to be concerned of. And something that, Randall, to be aware of is that with pedophiles and people that are not always the most best people out there, they'll hide their identity. They'll, and then we talked about catfishing, is they'll catfish themselves, that they'll take someone's picture. So maybe if you have a teenager, say maybe a 14-year-old boy, right, picture, and what they'll do is they'll make him sound all kind of cool and all that, and then they'll try to connect with your daughter. And what your daughter won't know, it looks like a 14-year-old boy. She'll try to connect, and he might say some great things. Oh my, you look so good, you're cute. Tell me a little about yourself, and then it starts to escalate. So something just to be mindful as the people that she's connect with people that she knows, right? Especially when it comes to social media, not people that she finds online, but actual people she physically knows in real life, and only connect with them. And people that she doesn't know, don't connect with right now, especially when she's a teenager or when she's young and she can't maybe discern or do enough research to be able to find out if they're valid people, or even ask the right questions. Because again, you look at, and don't get me wrong, if I was 15, 16 and a good looking girl or woman contacted me, I'd probably like all over that. Like, oh my God, good, she's connecting with me, right? But I don't know if she's like compromising me some way. So the reverse with a great, looking guy, maybe a teenager, giving a young girl compliments will boost up her self-esteem, and she might connect with them. So again, she doesn't know the person directly from school or some, intimate contact, or a friend knows them. Tell her not to connect with them right now. Be very safe when it comes to social media. Perfect, Randall. Yeah, just bringing up points, that I've had discussions with and talked to people about, is because again, you never know, and you want to make sure that your kids are as safe as possible, and you do your best, right, and help to educate them and as they go, and help to monitor their technologies, their social sites, and all that to make sure that they're protected. Because again, we don't want them to get in a bad situation, and that's the worst case, is that some parents kind of let their kids go out there. And now something happens, and now they go, oh my God, it's our fault. We should have done this. And it's like, you know what? Going forward, let's educate you on how to protect yourself and how to do the right things. And that's what I want to prevent, is parents having to have those conversations. I even know, like, I watched a documentary on Netflix, and I don't remember the name. I think it was about universities in the States, and they were saying that the amount of sexual assaults in the United States, in colleges and universities at that in the United States, is like 65 to 70%. I think it was a high rate, and a lot of it is like people they know, people they're connecting with through social media, and it's just something that you got to look at, the threats that are out there. And this is what I was talking about, the threats taking advantage of vulnerability equaling a risk. Well, the threat is that these young people, adults, teenagers are going to universities, and they're free now, and they're, oh my God, it's all great, and they're drinking a little bit and they're having some fun, they're partying, but the threat is someone might take advantage of them, and they have to be very aware. And this is now, like I said, this is your personal safety. When you look at online, when you look at your cyber accounts, right? Anything, your social media, your email, anything along that line, you really have to be mindful. And it's scary in the sense that, what kids have to deal with, right? And what teenagers have to deal with when they're, trying to learn and develop their personality and their self-esteem. They also have to look at the threats that are out there, and they have to be very strong in this day and age about everything that's going on. And they really have to have a real, good self-worth. And I'm sure, Randall, you're doing that, but just kind of put that out for other parents that potentially are watching this, is you really kind of have to build up their self-esteem and their self-worth, and make sure that you're having these great conversations and letting them speak, and not being like a dominant force that, no, you have to do this, but ask them why. Why do you want to do it? Tell me, educate me what, why do you want to be on these social sites? What's the advantage? Who else is on there? And tell me about the things that could happen. Like, educate me on the threats, and you'll kind of see where they sit. And then you can ask them questions, again, empowering them to say, okay, tell me a little bit about potential threats. And they say, well, I don't know if there's any other. Okay, before we start using this social site, I want you to go out and I want you to find, I want you to ask your friends, search online, tell me about the threats that are on Facebook, on Twitter, right? And I want you to come back, before you start using them, I want you to kind of get a good understanding, right? And you're going to educate me. And this way it empowers them to educate themselves, versus you're saying Twitter's bad and Facebook does this and all these challenges. And what you'll find is a lot of times, teenagers will get their back up and say, well, Dad, you don't know. Right? You don't know what's going on there. I'm safe. I know all that. But they come back and really educate you. And the initial process, like I was saying, is have them come back and educate you, empowers them. And then they come back with some more education, knowledge that, wow, I really didn't know. And again, then you have these conversations so that one, they've done the research, they've done their due diligence, and then you can start to monitor and do it in steps. Okay, well, you know what? You've done the research. You're 15, 16-year-old. You want to go on social sites. Okay, so you've done the research on that. Here, let's for the next 30 days, here, let's try a Facebook account together. I'm gonna have access to your new username and password, just so I'm gonna be checking it. So what I want to see is just how you're using, what are you talking about. Don't worry, I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm not going to post anything. Just, I just want to monitor, just make sure you're okay. All right. And if I see anything, we'll sit down, we'll talk. Right. And I won't do anything. We'll just sit down and talk. And then as you go through that process, it educates them, empowers them to take action, to understand what's going on. And you have a better relationship. Right now, there's times and points where you're going to have to say, okay, look, you can't do that, or you got to delete that guy, because, here's the threats. Here's what I found. And they're like, well, no, I don't want to do it. You're going to have to say, no, you got to delete it. You have to be safe. All right? There's a certain point where you're going to have to, be a parent. All right? There's be an educator, right? Or a student, right? But you're not going to be a friend. And this is something one of the parents I had to have a discussion with, and it's hard for parents in this day and age, is because they want to be their kid's friend. And I said, well, in this day and age, you can't be their friend. You can be their educator. You can be a student, learn from them. Right? But at the end of the day, you have to be a parent, because what happens is there's things that from your wisdom and your knowledge that they're not seeing yet. Right? They're still learning. They're still developing their self-awareness and their awareness of the environment. So what happens is you have to be that parent. And Randall's saying advisor. Exactly. Right? And sometimes you have to be very stern and educate your child, but be stern that, sorry, you can't go any further. But dad, no, I'm sorry. Here's what's going on. That person is a threat. That person's a threat. They're going to take advantage of you some way, right? And I know you're strong, and I'm not saying you're not, but they're going to try to do it. They might go after your friends. They might go after something else. So if you disconnect from them, they can't get access to you, right? And they can get access to your friends and people around you. So it's keeping you and your friends safe. I've been through a lot, and I hope she can she can learn from my experiences, and that's great, Randall. That's how we teach. A lot of us is through things that we've learned from personal experience, or experience from associates or people around us, people that we know, that we can kind of share that information. Again, the years of experience that we've gone through helps them to learn from our mistakes and things that we've had to go through to streamline the things that they don't want, or hopefully prevent anything that they might have to deal with. So good point. Let's look through here. If you don't mind me asking, Randall, what do you do? So yeah, this is why having the cyber chats, and I'm hoping to get more people and share this out, is because there are great conversations that we need to have, right? We need to have it as, for our own person, for our family, for our kids, for our business, for our clients. We need to have these conversations. Hotel hospitality. So let me ask you this, if you're in hotel hospitality, have you had to deal with clients, patrons that are staying at your hotel, them being compromised in the sense of, having problems with their credit card, their identity stolen, things like that? That's one of the industries like I've seen, where, especially when you look at overseas, where sometimes they have readers, different readers at, different restaurants and places where someone might have a reader that reads your credit card, and they swipe your card. Like, you might go, oh, here, here's my Visa or my MasterCard, whatever, and you give it to them, and they walk off to go pay, and instead of doing the interact, or on top of doing their debit machine, they swipe it, collect the identity off the card, and then give it back to you, and now they can steal it. In terms of identities being compromised, not yet. Good. That's good to know. Because like I said, I've heard stories of people traveling and their identity being stolen, their credit cards being stolen. Scam City was one of the shows I was watching for a while, where they were talking about how people were compromising, people by selling them back, like, what was it? Goods or services that were not valid. Maybe it was counterfeit information, like counterfeit products, things that say, oh my God, this is the statue of this person and it's $200. Well, meanwhile, it was really a statue that was, $15. So compromise like that, pickpockets, things like that, identity theft, where people would, steal your credit cards, any of your personal identification. There was even ones where you could book your vacations online, and you're booking through this site, and people were going through and they're getting a confirmation information. And then when they traveled there, they paid for their flight and got there was no hotel. There was no nothing. Right? Or it was a hotel, which now you had to pay more. Right? And I'm not saying your hotel does it, but I was just saying that these were compromises that were happening that on the show. It was, Scam City. So it's something, to really be mindful. And then you look at the day of the internet, a lot of people do their shopping online. They book their vacations. They do all that. Well, again, when you're looking at booking your vacations, are you clearing your cache? You're clearing your cookies after you've done that. Because, again, if you have any malware, you're on a site and any malware grabs that, they can get your information, your credit card information, your travel information, anything along that line. So just be very mindful as you're booking your vacations and, where you're going and what you're doing. Some of the hotels, I think actually should have some sort of information package about, personal security, what to do, what not to do, when you're traveling, how to protect your identity, how to protect your information, your money. And they should have a little bit of a packet they send out. Randall, I use just one debit card for all my online purchases and keep just enough money in the account to cover the purchases. So let me ask you this, and you don't have, so I'm going to tell you a story. I'm not going to ask you because I don't want you to kind of relate too much information. Some people use a debit card, which Randall's doing is that one debit card is very secure, right? It's maybe a limit of $500, and if they lose $500, it's disappointing, but it's not something that's going to break the bank. They can always make that up, and they secure that card. But what happens is you're seeing with new accounts, they're getting one central point of authentication. So you have your checking account, maybe you have a savings account, maybe you have an investor's account, all in that one login. So the problem with that is, and the challenge is, you might be securing that one debit card, but if they can get access to that debit card, they potentially can get access to your account, right? Your overall one login account, which then they can access all your other accounts. So that's a great practice when you're looking at shopping and doing all that. But again, when you look at hackers and what they're doing, they're trying to go that one level deeper. They're trying to get into your whole entire account. They might not just want to compromise your one bank account, like your debit card. They're looking to get into your bank account and see what's all there and then flush you right out. So something to think about. I mean, even one of the things I've talked to people about is separating your accounts. Have, two different authentication. You have one account for maybe your day-to-day stuff, and that's your debit card and what you're doing. And then you have another account completely set up, completely different login that has maybe your savings, your bank account, all that different information. So it's more secure. And then what happens is you do transfers in between them, and that, you can't withdraw or pull if you be able to log in one account. You have to be able to get access to that second account to be able to see the other money. So something to think about. I mean, I don't want people to be too paranoid, but I just want you to think about it, especially if you're in business or you're doing very well for yourself and you make lots of money, or if you make good enough money that you have some savings behind you, you want to protect it. You don't want to go through the compromise. Now, some banks are good, right? When they see a compromise, they'll reimburse you, do all that. But it's a lot of hassle, and sometimes, you got to be careful because sometimes they might not. So it's better for you to do your due diligence, do everything that you can. Because what happens when you go back to the bank and say, okay, you know what? I did this. I secured my information. I have two separate accounts. I have a secure password, which is, 10 plus characters long, uppercase, lowercase, different characters. Right? And you've secured everything. You've done your due diligence. So if it ever does happen, then you can go back to your bank and say, hey, you know what? I did everything I need to do. This compromise was on your side. I need you to help me with this. So at least it kind of covers, your protection, what you can do up to this point. Something I would recommend with your banks as well, for your online banking, if you do online banking, is have a password set up. So when you call in, there's an actual password, and have it something that's completely out of the realm, something completely different from you. So you look at your date of birth, everything you do, your favorite number, all that, write all that down, have that down on a piece of paper that you can shred or burn later, and then look at something completely different. Right? The reason why is you don't want to have it in the sense that, you did your grandma's birthday or you did your mother's, anniversary date or anything along that line, because that type of information can be found out, right? Through social engineering over time can be found out because people post things. All right, and I'm not saying Randall does, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying in general, people post information. Oh my God, I went to my parents' 23rd anniversary. Well, if it's the 23rd anniversary is 2016. I could just subtract that and find out when's their initial, when were they first married, and I can look at their marriage date. I can find all that information just through social engineering, right, and just kind of doing the research. So I'm chatting here a lot. Randall, is there any other questions that you might have? Since it's just kind of you and I today, a little personal one-on-one. one of the things I think about, as I'm going kind of through my training of cybersecurity and cyber protection, I'm going to call it cyber safety, is that there's so many great things are happening in technology applications that's evolving to the point where, we have accessibility to everything. I'm looking at smart TVs and what's called the IoT, which is the Internet of Things. And when you're looking at that and how we're so connected, from our TV to our thermostat to our lighting to your stove, your refrigerator, your washer, your dryer, all potentially have IP addresses that are connected, and you can control them. What else? Your car, right? You can have Wi-Fi access to your car and can turn on your car remotely and do all those great things. All these things are great technology and upgrades, and it makes using them amazing. But again, when you look at the vulnerability on the other aspect, is the company, and this is one thing we talked about last week, is the company protecting you? Are they securing their software? Are they updating it on an ongoing basis, which is called hardening or patches, that you're updating to make sure that everything's up to date, that you don't get compromised? Because I know there's tools like WarDrive, and I think I shared a video the other day about a Jeep. Hackers were showing from their couch how they compromised the Jeep that was on the road, right? And what I mean is they were able to get access to the console, they were able to get access to the power brakes, the power steering, the airbag, and they potentially could shut everything off, and that person's driving, and all of a sudden they have no control. So it's pretty scary. It's almost like when you think of the movies, we're getting close to that time frame where people are having these issues, right? And something that we have to think about as consumers is doing the research, asking the right questions to make sure we're protected. So yeah, Randall, I was just chatting away here. I didn't know if you had any other questions, if you got a lot of great information. Yeah, I mean, cybersecurity for me was one of the things that I started getting into, and I'll give you a little backstory about myself. Is I got in this because what has happened to me is I run a marketing company here in Toronto, Ontario, and more of my clients were getting compromised by their websites or social media, and it was just one of those things. I was just like, oh my God, what do you do, right? How do you protect them? So I started to do a little bit of research, and as I started to open up Pandora's box, it just got worse and worse, to the point where I was like, I got to study this. I got to learn more. And it came to the point where now I'm doing more and more cybersecurity talks and consulting, and I'm just developing my knowledge. So Randall's saying on that topic, I physically cover the webcam on my laptop, which with a piece of paper. I've heard that hackers can get on your webcam. Yeah, so through malware, depending on a link or anything that you might click on, or even some applications that you might install, they can get access to, and I'm just going to use Logitech, they can access to the Logitech drivers and be able to turn on your camera. So that is possible. One of the things I recommend is that you disable your camera. You look at, and you have a good software scan or antivirus scanner. I use Kaspersky, Kaspersky. I'm just going to type that on here. That's the one that I use. And then just keep it up to date. Keep scanning. If they find malware or anything along that line, I have good luck with that. McAfee, perfect. Right? Just keep it up to date. Keep scanning. Now, the one thing that I advise when it comes to antivirus software, any software is only as good as the last definition update. And the problem is that sometimes they're not completely up to date what's going on in the industry. I mean, they have to write the definitions to help to clear any of the malware, viruses, anything along that line. So it takes them time. So what happens is if something's out today, this morning, say at 10 o'clock, they might not have the virus definition up to date. So what happens is you can get compromised. Now, It's very rare that happens, but it is one of those. It's like, looking at 90 to 95% secure. It's not 100%. So it's good if you protect your camera. I know with my webcam camera, sometimes I turn it to the screen, right? So as I'm working away, so if it ever gets turned on, and I have monitoring tools on my system, so I can see if things pop up. But yeah, if it ever turns on, they're looking at my monitor at a corner of my monitor. So that's what I do. And yeah, I mean, some of the things I've told people to do when it comes to webcam, make sure you have it in an office. Don't have your laptop or any of your devices like that in your bedroom or your washroom or anything along that line. I know people do that, but just, they're chatting away as they're going to the bathroom, whatever. If your device is going to get compromised, or your device does get compromised, you could get, hacked, and then they could take pictures. So having areas where, it's okay if someone takes a picture, right? And then you can monitor, as you're doing with McAfee and other tools, you can protect yourself. Hey, Ali, did you want to jump in? Sounds good. Yeah, it's a small world. You're from Toronto. I think I've seen you on a few blabs before. I've been on for about 50 minutes, so I'm going close to an hour. And Randall and I have been having some great chats when it comes to protection, cybersecurity, teenagers, hospitality, hotel hospitality. So been on for a little bit. Normally I go for about an hour. Sometimes I go a little bit longer, depending if the conversations just is flying and then everyone's engaging. I know the last one we went to an hour and a half. Did you have any questions or comments when it comes to cybersecurity? And what about yourself, Randall? Was there anything else I could answer for you? Any other comments that you have, or even just tips that you'd recommend to people? You met me. Oh, yes, we did. It is a small world. Okay, you got to come on. You got to jump on. Yeah, so Randall, did you have any, like I said, any comments? Any feedback, anything along that line? That's awesome. Yeah, like I said, if you want to jump in for just a couple minutes, I'd love to see just what you're up to and what you're doing. How's your business doing? Ah, okay. Yeah, we should catch up. Not that often. Let me close out this show and then we could chat just for a few minutes. How's that sound? Okay. Go feed your son. I'll be here for a few minutes. Randall, I travel to Mexico a couple times a year and connect to a lot of different networks. When I get home, I always back up and reload. Okay. So you're talking about your systems, like your awesome. Now, do you travel to Mexico for business or just for pleasure? For business. One thing, now, do you use a VPN when you're away to have a secure? Okay. Some to look into is a VPN connection, virtual private network connection, when you're connected to the internet and secure your data as you're maybe connecting to different networks, different internet. Proxies are not bad, but do you know what a proxy is, right? So just for people watching this, just so you're kind of aware. So just experiment. Okay, so proxy servers, what happens is they're gateways for your connectivity. So they give you the definition of what can go through that area. So if they have definitions on it saying like you can't do Facebook, and then also you try to go Facebook and it says no, we don't allow it. So proxy server is monitoring the connection, the flow of traffic through that device out to the network. So that's what a proxy is, right? What happens is what I'm saying is on the client side, VPN encrypts the data that you're sending through that router or that proxy to be able to go out through the internet, so no one is able to, or it's very hard for them, very, very hard for them to sniff, they call it, or capture your packets that you're sending over the internet so they can get any of your data or your information. So what you want to do is through like a virtual private network that you connect, or HTTPS, like secure surfing, your data is encrypted as it goes out. So then what happens is if you're doing any business, anything along that line, you don't have to worry that someone can be sniffing your information and find out what you're doing. So I would look a little bit into that, some VPN connections, just to secure that connection. A lot of companies, and I remember working for the Ontario government 2001, 2002, most of the staff that worked remotely had to have a VPN client on their desktop, on their laptop, that they were connecting into the network and what they were doing. Because what happens is they had to make sure the data was secure. Yeah, so let me know if you have any questions about that. Okay, so Randall's saying it's mainly sending reports and one-on-one communication, some video communication. Again, we're looking at security, cybersecurity, areas of protection. Right, you want to make sure your data is getting to the right connection, the information is protected. These are things that I would recommend. And that comes up to yourself and your company. What they'd like to do, because again, if there's reports, financial reports, or anything like going along from you to to head office, right, or another manager or something along that line, you want to make sure that information is protected. So, Ali, just hold on one second. Was there anything else, Randall? Any other questions that you might have? Because we're coming up on 11 o'clock. So we're coming up on 11 o'clock. Anytime, Randall, you're so welcome. These cyber chats are going to be every Tuesday. We're on the episode 8, so they're going to be every Tuesday at 10 a.m. in the morning. So make sure you share it with your friends, your family members. Just really get out there, because my goal is to help you guys protect yourselves, protect your family, and protect your business. So make sure you share this out. Make sure you come out to the next one. Share it with your family, your friends, business colleagues, anything. Let's get that conversation going, and let's help people protect themselves online. Thanks, guys, and I hope you have a nice and amazing Tuesday.